Fat loss is like a game, and most people make it hard for themselves without realizing it. Once you understand the steps, it actually gets easy. This is what I used to look like. I was fat with no confidence and afraid to take my shirt off at the beach. This is what I look like right now. I'm way more confident and can take my shirt off without feeling uncomfortable. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get similar results to me, but way faster. Step number 1. It all starts in your head. How many times have you said this to yourself? Oh, I'm just going to work out 5 days a week and then I'm going to improve the way that I eat and then I'm going to completely change my body. But deep down, you don't actually believe that you will do it. I know personally what this feels like because, when I was growing up, right, I always struggled, and I mean always, with my self-belief. I kept dreaming of getting in a better shape, right? But I just never took action on it because I had so many limiting beliefs. I thought to myself that I didn't know enough. So I had to watch one more video about fitness before I took action. But one video turned into 10. And before you know it, nothing happened. So step 1 is to actually believe that you can do it. From my personal experience, right, this is so underrated when it comes to getting the results that you want. The power of self-belief shouldn't be underestimated, even though it sounds like corny, when people talk about, oh, believe in yourself and all those things. It was once I realized that I didn't need more information, but I needed to take more action instead. And this is where everything completely changed. Now, I know this sounds so much easier said than done, so let me give you some advice. Become delusional. Be honest with yourself. When you really think about it, right, there is literally no upside to you thinking to yourself, oh, it's going to be so hard and I don't know if I can actually do it and it's going to be such a challenge. Because you just approach it with this loser mentality from the start instead of changing your mindset. Why not approach it with the mindset instead that you already have what it takes and it's going to be easier than you actually think it is. By doing it this way instead, I promise you, it's not going to be as scary to get started. Instead of just telling yourself, like stroking your own ego, oh, I'm eventually going to do it and tomorrow I'm going to do it, instead of just doing it right away. Once you get your brain, into this positive loop of thinking over and over and over, trust me when I say this, it's so much more powerful than you think. Quick side note, if you want my personal help with losing fat and building a body that you actually feel proud of, just like I have right here, and click the first link in the description. Step number 2, clean up your eating habits. Now, what do I exactly mean by this? I mean that you have to become more conscious of what you eat. Here's the truth, right? The biggest reason why most people are fat, and this was me included, is because we make bad decisions when it comes to food. It was once I started to clean up my eating habits that everything started to go in the right direction. And the easiest approach that I personally have found with this is to follow the rule of out of sight, out of mind. What this basically means is if you don't have snacks or bad foods easy to access in your house, let's say in your cupboards, and you don't eat them nearly as much. I don't know about you, but for me personally, if I'm craving bad foods, candy, chocolate or whatever, and I don't have them easy to access in my house, I just can't be bothered to go get them. How to make this so much easier for yourself is just to be more conscious when you're food shopping. Just walk past the snack aisles and the chocolate aisles, because by doing it this way, you don't even have to bother with taking that stuff home with you and, eating it and feeling bad about it afterwards. If you have a sweet tooth like me, for example, then go for the healthier options. I can recommend you Greek yogurt. Then you mix in fruit and some honey on top. This is perfectly satisfying, to still get that sweet tooth in. Or, if you like soda, for example, then go for the sugar-free version instead of the full sugar one. And by doing just small changes like this, you can still enjoy yourself. Put your main focus on just eating more whole foods. This is basically foods with no weird ingredients in them. Stick with the basics and that's all that you need. I personally vary between beef, chicken and fish, and I pair it with either rice or potatoes. There are so many different ways to prepare the same kind of meal, with different spices and herbs or whatever you can think of, so it still tastes good every single time. The best advice that I can give you, that I have personally learned, is that you'd make it an enjoyable lifestyle instead of seeing it like, a temporary diet that you're just going to suffer yourself through. The reason why, majority of people who go on diets, they never keep the weight off, is because it's not sustainable or enjoyable for them to keep going. They suffer themselves through like 12 weeks of eating salads and water, and once they go back to their old ways of eating again, the weight is just slowly coming back again. Now, how you actually fix this and, keep the weight off for good is by turning it into a lifestyle instead of seeing it like a diet. See it as a new chapter in your life where you're actually gonna consciously eat better foods. Meanwhile, you make them enjoyable for yourself. And this, I promise you, is so much easier to stay consistent with because you actually enjoy the foods that you're eating. Meanwhile, you're actually improving your body at the same time. I personally don't have any problems, eating the same foods, literally like every single day. It's convenient. You just make a big batch and then you have food for like 3 or 4 days. And on top of that, it's so much easier to stay consistent, when you're eating the same meals over and over and over. So clean up your eating habits by being more conscious of what you eat. Take the time to build some serious consistency. Because trust me when I say this, if you have the mindset right now, I just want faster results, so I'm going to go on this big crash diet, with salads and water for the next 12 weeks. Trust me when I say this, you will get overwhelmed just a couple of weeks in, and then you will quit. And what happens when you quit? You go back to your old ways again. And the weight that you lost initially, right, it's just completely gone and you will gain it all back. Step number 3, don't rely on only doing cardio. Here's the mistake that most people do, when it comes to losing fat. And I did this myself so many times. You have the mindset that you need to do really intense cardio, to get the results that you want. But this is so much further from the truth. Again, it comes down to the same thing, just like your eating habits. It has to be sustainable, but enjoyable at the same time for you to stay consistent. Now, sure, you will lose fat, just by doing cardio, but you won't build any additional muscle, to fill out your frame. So you would just end up looking skinny instead. So how we fix this problem, so you don't just end up looking skinny after putting in all this extra effort. We combine low intensity cardio, not high intensity. We combine that with doing resistance training. And let me give you an example so you know what I mean. To start off, I will recommend you to go to the gym 3 days a week. Let's make it simple for ourselves. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And to help you along the way, I'll put a workout routine on the screen right now that you can copy to get started. On top of going to the gym 3 days a week, we combine this with the low intensity cardio in the form of walking. A good rule of thumb that you can follow is doing 10,000 steps every single day. And I know you might be thinking, this sounds like a lot, right? 10,000 steps. But trust me, it really isn't. For example, if you have the option to take the stairs instead of the escalator, then do that. If you have the option to take the stairs instead of the elevator, then you also do that. Small things like this on a day-to-day basis makes a big difference in the way that your body looks. And I need to emphasize this once again. Focus on building consistency over doing too much at the start and, overwhelming yourself and quitting. Start slow and build it into a habit. The easier it is for you to stay consistent, right? The faster you will get the results that you always wanted. I've learned so many things since I started working out, and I compiled the biggest lessons in this video right here, so you can just learn from my mistakes.